Listen to this. Blacks were subject to the cruelest punishments for acting on their desire for freedom or for the slightest infraction. Lynchings, corpse mutilations, beheadings, live burnings, and ritual displaying of amputated body parts was commonplace. There are many recorded cases of impalings of the severed heads of Africans as a warning to other blacks. Whippings were cruel and sadistic, resulting in acute blood loss, shock, and infection, and were often fatal. One former slave wrote of having witnessed a black man being forced to whip his own mother to death. The shrieks of horror were often audible for miles. Blacks were suspended by their wrists or stretched across the ground before a cowhide or paddle beating. These bloody, flesh-gouging floggings would sometimes last for hours, consisting of hundreds of lashes before mustard, cayenne, salt, or turpentine would be applied to their wounds to prolong the torture. Pregnant women were forced to lie face down in a whipping hole dug out for her belly so she could be whipped while preserving her valuable slave infant. Some blacks were whipped until their skin was completely removed, and the slave who was forced to apply the whipping was subject to the same if the slave showed any mercy. This is why a black policeman today, to prove he hates his own, will sometimes beat us worse than the white man. This is the way we were bred. This is why, black woman, you get no respect, because we were forced to have sex with you, not to marry you, but to have sex with you to produce babies for a slave master. And today they have a hell of a nerve to talk about our immorality. Our little bastard children. I read about a black woman in slavery who had 4 children. And the day had come that the slave master was going to sell her children away from her. They sold 1, they sold 2. They sold 3, but when it came to her last child, she broke through the ranks and ran to the foot of the slave master and bowed down at his foot and begged him, crying, "Please don't sell my last child. And if you sell him, could you sell with him so I could be with my child?" The slave master looked down at her and kicked her and stomped her. And as she crawled away, crying and shrieking, her last child was sold away. Why do you talk like this, Farrakhan? Don't you realize you're stirring up hatred? Is this why some of you don't like Mel Gibson's Passion of the Christ? How many of you saw the movie? I saw it. How many of you saw the terrible beating that was administered to Jesus? The scourging of Jesus, beating him till his body was raw. I saw it. I heard people in the audience crying. One woman couldn't take it and had a heart attack and died because to see her Lord beaten like that, it brought up out of her heart compassion. That's one man. But if you would read this book, without sanctuary. I want every white child listening, every white family listening, go get this book, Without Sanctuary. I couldn't even read it. And this is only the tip of the iceberg. If you could feel the pain of Jesus in that brutal whipping put on him by the Roman soldiers, then read what happened to our fathers. And they did nothing to Jesus that has not been done to us, and then some. The only problem that Reverend Al and I might have with the movie. See, I understand, Mel, I really understand. You had enough heat as it was, but if you had made him black, if you had followed that part of the scripture and put a little more color in his face, since his mother Mary was an Egyptian woman and his father Joseph was a black man, and Jesus said, I am the seed of David, the root of Jesse, the bright and the morning star. Paint him as he is. See, but if he were black, if you did that to him, Mel, maybe the shrieks in the audience would come up, kill the nigger, burn that nigger. I know that nigger did something wrong. I know I'm talking to the whole world. But neither Arab, Christian, or Jew feel the pain of black suffering. And I'm going to tell you why. That's why all you scholars can talk about God and the kingdom, but you don't mention the transatlantic slave trade. You don't mention the horror of our suffering. Here's why. It's because of something called the Hamitic curse. Now, I know that this is kind of rough, you know, but according to the Babylonian scholars, writers of the Talmud, not the Torah, but the Talmud. Now I want you to listen. Come on, come on, come on. Don't walk away from me now. I know it's painful, but you can't correct the wrong if you don't know it. I'm not trying to make anybody feel bad. I want us, hopefully, to look at the horror of what was done to an entire people. And I want you to confront your hypocrisy. See? You know that in the Bible, Noah's son that laughed at his father's nakedness was cursed. The Bible don't say he was cursed black. The Bible just said he was cursed. But as black people, you were made to believe that the color of your skin was a divine curse. That's why some black people didn't want the first person in their house on New Year's Day to be black, real black, because that means bad luck would follow them the whole year. And some of us right now, in 2004, got a color problem. Look at this now. The Hamitic curse was written of in the Talmud 400 years after the birth of Jesus. And the way they wrote it was, I got to find the exact words because it's really powerful. I just want to read what the Talmud says, since most blacks don't know the Torah or the Talmud. And many wish that I wouldn't do this, but I can't help it. I got to do it. Oh, Lord, come on now. Let me find that. I'm going to take my time. Oh, boy. Well, I'm going to say it. In the Talmud, they talked about because he looked at Noah in that condition and mocked it, the redness of his eyes, turning of his head, made these kinks in his hair, thickness of his lips. That's our features. We were black and cursed. Now you can tell me, oh brother, that's not true. But I'm going to tell you, it absolutely is true. See, you, so-called Jews, I'm not going to give you the credit for being one of those that obey God. You portrayed us. You know what images do. That's why you jumped on Mel Gibson. But you painted us. Big lips, red eyes, kinky hair. You put us in the movies like that. You mocked our characteristics and made us to hate God's creation of us. You did that. Hollywood did that. Step and Fetch It. Mantan Moreland. Amos and Andy. Butterfly McQueen. Run the road. You take our strongest, more courageous black minds. You think we don't see you? And you put us in Hollywood. You give us television shows. And then we got to buck our eyes. So we got all these blacks in Hollywood now in a modern Step and Fetch It role. Laughing when ain't a damn thing funny. You allow them to prostitute you for $1. I got a call from a black man from Hollywood. I hope you don't mind me saying it. Maybe I better not. Yeah, I'm going to say it. He don't mind. He don't mind. Because he's a strong black man. His name is Yaphet Kotto. They didn't want Yaphet Kotto to keep that name, change it. I'm sure they wanted him to be Tim Witherspoon. But Yaphet Kotto sounds too African-like. He said they offered him a part in Cabin in the Sky. They want to do it again with him as the lead. And he said, Farrakhan, I can't accept these roles. I've been a man in movies. I've stood up as a man in movies, and now they want me to play these degraded roles. I can't do it, and they're hot with me, they're angry with me. But I'm telling you, Hollywood, leave that brother alone. Let me tell you something. Your days are numbered. The finger has written on the wall in blood. Mene, tekelu fasten. Your kingdom has been weighed in the balance and found wanting. Black man and woman, you gotta stand up. Money is not more important than principle. If they can print money, they print it every day. It's a $50 bill. You buy a little crack. Ulysses Grant. He ain't my brother. He ain't my friend. This 50 won't do today what $3 used to do 40 years ago. This money is being devalued. And you sell your soul for $1. A strong black man, Wesley Snipes. See him in The Blade. See him in his movies with these karate steps. Blah, blah, bang. And they offer you $15 million to play a woman. What happened? What happened? All that strength that you showed giving young black boys, I want to be like Wesley. I want to be like Snipes. Then you come out in a dress, and the boy's confused. I'm almost finished. It hurts me too to have to say this, and I can't say it easy because I'm filled with passion. Yeah, passion of Christ, passion of Muhammad, passion of the prophets, passion for truth. When you understand how we in slavery made England rich. Europe and America benefited from the slave trade. I want to show you the banking institutions that were spawned by slavery. The Dutch West India Company, the British East India Company, all these companies thrived because of slavery. And from them, capitalism got its start and its growth. Slavery spawned the European Industrial Revolution. And out of that came banking institutions that have taken over the world. I'm coming to it. The transatlantic slave trade was the foundation of the European economic system of capitalism. Oh, man. African slavery was the cornerstone of the development of European colonial enterprises in the Caribbean, in the West Indies, Central and South America, and the English colonies that became America. Here's the European nations that participated in the slave trade: Portugal, Spain, Holland, France, and England. The English conquered and enslaved the islands of Barbados, St. Christopher, the birthplace of my mother, called St. Kitts, and Nevis, the birthplace of my grandmother, Antigua, Montserrat, and Jamaica, the birthplace of my father, which the British took from the Spanish. The French conquered and enslaved the islands of Martinique, Guadeloupe, St. Lucia, Grenada, St. Dominique, Haiti. I'm going to talk about Haiti for a second. The Portuguese conquered and enslaved the islands of Cape Verde off the western coast of Africa, Sao Tome and Brazil. The Spanish conquered and enslaved the islands of Hispaniola, present-day Dominican Republic and Haiti, Cuba, Puerto Rico, Panama, and traded, excuse me, slaves in Mexico, Peru, Colombia, Venezuela, Ecuador, Argentina, and Guatemala. Blacks all down in there. The Dutch conquered and enslaved the islands of Curacao, St. Eustatius, Tobago, and parts of Brazil. The slaves in the Caribbean, all you West Indian people listening to me this morning, I want you to listen good, because all you think you're free, eh? You better know the West Indies made Europe. And you don't want to ask for nothing. The English colonies, well, products produced in the Caribbean: tobacco, indigo. No, don't cut me off. I know you don't like what I'm saying, but give me, keep the volume there. I'm going to help you. In Brazil, slaves were not only used on the sugar and coffee plantations, they were used to mine gold and diamonds that were discovered. The English colonies that ultimately became America amassed their wealth through the capitalist enterprise of the transatlantic slave trade in the north and the development of the plantation economy in the south. The English colonies in New York, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts were directly engaged in the commercial activity of the slave trade. Capitalist enterprises such as banking, shipbuilding, and insurance companies were developed to promote and sustain the slave trading business. Now, between 1500 and 1750, the slave trade was the largest employer in Holland and Portugal. Barclays Bank has its financial foundation set deep in the heart of the transatlantic slave trade. Its founders, David and Alexander Barclay, established the bank in 1756 with the profits that they made in their slaving business. Lloyd's of London was a coffee shop, a coffee house. It could not have become one of the biggest finance capital forces in the world without its legacy of dabbling in and insuring British slave ships and their cargoes. Europe and America, wealthy because of slavery. Look, those of you listening in the United Kingdom, there's a city there called Bristol. It was the slave and sugar trades which made Bristol the second city of England for the first 3/4 of the 18th century. A local analyst wrote, "There is not a brick in the city but what is cemented with the blood of a slave. Sumptuous mansions, luxuriant living, liveried menials were the produce of the wealth made from the sufferings and the groans of the slaves bought and sold by the British merchants." Now, after slavery was abolished, and did you know that in the United States, before it became the United States, they were arguing in Congress. I mean, in the, what do you call it, the Constitutional Convention, arguing about you. And guess what they were arguing about? The issue of slavery was the central debate at the convention. The northern delegates would not regard the slaves in any light except as property, and took the position that slaves could not be counted as persons to determine representatives to Congress. But the southern delegates demanded that blacks be counted equally as whites, not because they thought we were equal, but they wanted more representative power in the new nation. So there was a compromise called the 3/5 compromise. So in Article 1, Section 2 of the Constitution of the United States, it says, and I quote, "Representatives and direct taxes shall be apportioned among the several states which may be included within the Union according to their respective numbers, which shall be determined by adding to the whole number of free persons, including those bound to service for a term of years, and excluding Indians not taxed, 3/5 of all other persons." So that's how you became 3/5. And guess what? In the first 100 years of this nation, 70 of those years were ruled by Southerners because they counted us as 3/5 of a human being. And they argue over you now, not because they love you. What can they get from you to enhance their position? 10 of the 16 first presidents of the United States were slave owners. That's why when the current generation of white people say, "Well, we didn't do nothing," yeah, but the government of America did. And that's why we have to petition the government. All right. These people fought to extend the slave trade. And the transatlantic slave trade, as horrible as it was, there was another compromise, and they allowed it to exist for 20 more years. The slave trade ended in 1808, but slavery continued. Now, brothers and sisters, I'm going to stop on this now, because the history is something that you can read. But I want you that don't know what happened to you. It's written in books. But if you won't read, you'll go along for the ride. Right now, there's a great election coming up. And there you will be used again. Democratic leaders, boy, that was loud. I woke up somebody that would sleep on the second row. They thought I was blowing a weapon of mass destruction. Black people are so angry with President Bush that they are willing to give Senator Kerry a free ride. That's not wise. That is not wise. You notice how frightened the Democrats are that Ralph Nader has decided he's going to run? Because the 5% that he got in the last election could throw the election to President Bush. So Democrats are saying, hey, damn, look, man, get out of this. We want to get Bush. But what will you get in the place of Bush? I wish that Reverend Al Sharpton, who has been brilliant in the debates, but he knows, I know, you know, we know, they know, he ain't gonna be no president. But let's look at this. Suppose we said, we don't want to give Kerry a free ride, or Bush, because we were all Republicans at one time because of the deceptive trickery of Abraham Lincoln and made you think that you were free. So all of us were Republicans until Franklin Delano Roosevelt came up with the New Deal and dealt from the bottom of the deck, and we got on welfare, WPA, and all of that, and he's been a champion for us. And for 16 years, 4 terms, he died in the 4th term, he was elected president, and we've been Democrats ever since, even though the Democratic Party was the party that was for segregation, was for slavery. Talmadge and Bilbo, you need to read them crackers. I mean, those people. You need to read about them. Yeah, all the way up to the 60s. Look at this. Suppose, just suppose, you notice in these debates, ain't nobody raised serious questions about our issues. See, they lumped us in with poor people. I don't even know whether we are a statistic. They say there's 35 million poor people. Some people say it really is as high as 100 million, but we need to end poverty. Everybody need a job. Don't that sound good? It tickles your ears, don't it? Let me tell you something. There's 9 million Americans unemployed. And the unemployed Americans, when they create a job, more than likely, you won't get it. The factories are closing and moving out of America. Industry, manufacturing going out of the country. Even some high-tech jobs moving out of the country. President Bush says it's okay. I mean, this is all right. So we say in NAFTA, we say in the World Trade Organization, good. But what will that do for you? But suppose we call Reverend Sharpton in and said, look, Reverend Sharpton, let's ask all black voters to hold their vote and let you and a group of skilled people put before either party a program where there's benefit for us as a people. Then you become more powerful than Nader, and people got to listen to what you got to say. You may not get everything that you want, but at least you won't get a speech. You didn't hear me. A speech at the convention. We don't want that. We want some action. Okay? Now, Reverend Sharpton is brilliant. But if you surround him with John Conyers, surround him with Ron Walters, surround him with people that know politics and want to get to American government our issues. What happened to racial profiling? What happened to police brutality and mob attacks? What happened to putting reparations on their mind? Talk about the death penalty. Talk about the uneven sentencing for crack cocaine as opposed to powdered cocaine. Talk about the game that's being played on black people, filling prisons with our men and women. Talk about the movement of crack cocaine from the government. Talk about our issues. A good Jew will never let a politician get his vote unless you can speak effectively to Jewish issues. Black people never give away their vote until you force these people to speak to your issues. And now, in my conclusion, getting rid of Bush and getting John Kerry and leaving the neocons in place will mean that you'll get more of the same. Who are the neocons? See, people like Crystal, Wolfowitz, Pearl, Rumsfeld, Cheney. All of these people are the architects of an imperial program and policy to make America, listen carefully, the power to control the world, but using black bodies, brown bodies, and white bodies to preserve and protect Israel. No, I want you to listen. Listen. These neocons came to Bill Clinton and offered him the plan to remove Saddam Hussein. Are you listening? Bill Clinton didn't go for it. He shot some rockets in Sudan, blowing up a pharmaceutical plant, shot some rockets into Afghanistan trying to kill Osama bin Forgotten, until President Bush saw his numbers slipping, and now Osama bin Forgotten is back in the news again. Have you noticed? I'm going to end this, but I got to show you what's about to go down with the help of God. Look, President Bush, when he came into office, had it in his mind to destroy Saddam Hussein and have a regime change in Iraq. He said this long before 9/11, that his administration was committed to regime change. Once the president says that, and the neocons are the architects of that, then the Washington Post, the New York Times, the Miami Herald, the Los Angeles Times, Newsweek, Time Magazine, U.S. News World Report, CNN, Fox Radio begin the propaganda barrage. Saddam is a terrible man. Saddam is a bad, bad man. Saddam messed up the land. Saddam is a bad, bad man. So damn Saddam. You know. And after they beat those drums, they take a poll. What do you think? We ought to get ready to sit down. Before they make a move, they have to make you think that the man is wicked as hell. Yeah, he did wrong, but he ain't done no more wrong than American presidents. He gassed his own people. Well, how the hell do you think you're in this condition? Somebody been gassing you. Somebody been experimenting on you. Somebody been misusing you. The Hamitic curse has made Christians, Jews, and Muslims see black people in an inferior light. Did you hear me? Hegel, Kant, and Dewey, the father of the American educational system, all of them see blacks and Africans as inferior. And they've put it in the educational system. That's why when I was in the kindergarten, the first thing they taught me was about little black Sambo. Dick and Jane and Spot. See Spot run. Spot was a white dog with a black spot. And that's the only thing we could identify with. Oh, look at the spot on Spot. And we grow up hating who we are. There's a videotape that my sister allowed me to see of a white American teacher who was told and did tell how she was told how to kill the inspiration of black children in school. Go read Malcolm's autobiography and see what Malcolm was told when he was in the 8th grade and he wanted to be a lawyer. And they told Malcolm, Malcolm, my people are not going to hire you and your own people don't trust you, but you'd make a great carpenter. Now that was in Lansing, Michigan. I grew up in Boston, Massachusetts. And I was 10 years old. I played the violin. And my teacher asked me, Louis, what do you want to be when you grow up? I said, I would like to be a doctor because I want to heal people. She said, oh, Louis. She said, my people will never hire you as a doctor, and your own people wouldn't trust your medicine knowledge, but you play the violin beautifully. What was she telling me? This is not an accident. You gotta watch your children in these schools. These little black boys go to these warehouses, and they're smart as hell before they get to school. And by the time they're 6 and 7 and 8, they're dumb as hell. Why? There's a program to destroy black children. I'm right there. President Bush knew that that man didn't have any weapons of mass destruction. Since 1991, they were in there destroying weapons of mass destruction. But look at the case that our brother Colin Powell made before the United Nations. He compromised his own integrity. They used him with skewed information from the intelligence community, and they marched off to war. black boys, black girls, white girls, Hispanic boys, Hispanic girls dying on the basis of a lie. I want to ask, is this high crimes misdemeanor? Is it worthy of bringing President Bush before the world and charging him with the deaths of all of these Americans and all of these Iraqis that have died? I'm just asking a question. Do you know that America refuses to join the International Criminal Court and has made bilateral agreements with 75 nations that none of these nations will ever bring an American citizen before the International Court and charge them with crimes against humanity? Do you know that the government of the United States has threatened these nations that if they don't sign, they will not get military aid? And the lie that they tell is that they're jealous of us and they may bring us. Let me tell you something. In the New York Times about a month and a half ago, they were talking about soldiers in Vietnam. And the politicians needed a high body count so that the American people would see that they were winning the war. And the brass, with an eagle on his shoulder, told the soldiers, go and kill Vietnamese. They killed men, women, children, elderly, cut off their ears, cut off their fingers, and made trinkets out of it. This is just in the 60s. They did that to us on the plantation. They did it to the Native American. I close this. Are you, the present generation of whites, any better than your fathers? No, listen. You didn't do it, but the responsibility to correct it is on your shoulders. You didn't do it, but do you have the courage to right the wrong? You did not do it, but you must disprove that you are the children of murderous fathers by showing that you are different from your fathers. But if that bill to study reparations does not move out of committee and get real discussion, then you're showing us you're the same as your father. If, when we raise this question all over America, instead of saying we'll study it and we'll do our best to rectify it, Tavis Smiley said that he was on that plane with President Clinton when they flew to Goree Island in Senegal. And there was a lot of black folk on that plane with the president. And some of them asked the president, President Bush, are you willing, Clinton, pardon me, are you willing to apologize for slavery after seeing the horror of Goree Island? And Tavis Smiley said, some of the blacks on the plane said, you ain't got to apologize for slavery, Mr. President. Or you ain't did nothing like that. That's true. All right, a silly Negro spoke like that. But what kind of character did the president have? Look at the Pope of Rome. The Pope said, I ask all the indigenous people of the world to forgive the church for what the church did to the indigenous people. We're sorry. Well, that's a start. The Pope made a start. That's not enough, though, Your Holiness. See the wealth of the church? How did you get it? Are you willing to share it? To help raise the standard of those whom the church crushed? American Christians, you brag about how Jesus is a God of love. And the Muslim God is a God of hate and violence. I just talked about the violence of the slave trade and the violence that continues on our people every day. You say you love? Then do something to repair the damage. The lowest cost to repair the damage in financial terms, some of our scholars say is around $9 trillion. That's a lot of money. You don't give money to a fool. It has an elastic band on it. They give it to you and pop it. And it's right back in their hands in less than a month. No, no, no. The transfer of knowledge is the start of repairing the damage. You notice Pakistan transferred knowledge to North Korea, Iran, and Libya of how to make an atomic weapon. That's what produces equality, transfer of knowledge. Can you heal us? No, you can't. But you can support our healing. A man came to North America by himself. A man came and he had healing in his wings. A man came and he raised up another man and taught that man, and the healing process began. You can't deny that Elijah Muhammad healed. You can't deny that Malcolm X was a man in the process of healing. You can't deny that Muhammad Ali or Imam Waruddin or Louis Farrakhan and those of us who are the students of Elijah Muhammad have not been in the forefront of healing black people. You don't heal black people with guns. You heal black people with the knowledge of God, the knowledge of self. I close. Poor Michael Jackson, our brother. You notice how the media beat us up? What did we do? The Nation of Islam has surrounded and taken control of Michael Jackson. The Nation of Islam, that hate group. They have played the race card. The Nation of Islam, that fringe group. We work in corporate America. And ain't nobody said we took it over. Some Muslims have even worked in the White House. If they had taken it over, the color would have changed. Might have been called a yellow house or a black house or a brown house. But we didn't take it over just because we were there. Members of the Nation of Islam secure a lot of black professionals in entertainment, in sports, and in other fields of endeavor. Nobody accuses them of having come over to the Nation of Islam. It's a job. We're not there trying to convert the brother. It's a job. He had security around him. They was charging him $6,000 a day, $8,000 a day, $56,000 a week, and they weren't doing nothing for him and being disrespectful of him. So he asked, could we help? We said, sure. Some of our brothers work now. That's a job. He loved our chief of staff, his brilliance. He's on loan. It ain't permanent. But he has helped to save Michael Jackson millions of dollars. And I ain't going too much further. But he ain't running Michael's show. Why then are they saying this? In Inquirer magazine, it said Louis Farrakhan got $5 million from Michael, man. And some dude got a tape that Farrakhan taped Michael and he confessed at Mosque Mariam. Oh, these are liars, liars, liars. Do you know Farrakhan has never asked Michael Jackson for as much as a dime or as little as a penny. Farrakhan is no whore. You don't buy me with a nickel, a dime, or $1 million, or $10 million, or $100 million. We as Muslims follow the Quran. We do no favor seeking gain. You say, we played the race card. 2 white men in California were charged with murder. Their bail was $1 million. Michael Jackson charged with lascivious and lewd conduct with a child, $3 million. Who played the race card? Who played it? We don't believe Michael is guilty. And there are a lot of people that know the mother who is accusing him and the little boy that he helped to heal, and they don't believe that Michael is guilty. What happened to the presumption of innocence? See, black people are always guilty until they're proved innocent. White people are innocent until they're proved guilty. You see that Hamitic curse? It's always working. I pray that Michael Jackson will come through this, but I believe I know why he's under attack. See, when you're allowed to become that popular, where people all over the world love you, and some even worship him and look at him as a Lord, this is the truth. You've seen those videos where women just fall out over Michael, right? Michael is growing in consciousness. That's what makes him dangerous. Consciousness plus money means power. And if he would make an album saying, they don't care about us, wise white people say, see, he's putting a message in his music and we can't have it. See, they're a little smarter than the slave master was when we used to sing, everybody talking about heaven ain't going there, heaven, heaven. We were talking about white folk not going to heaven. They talk about it. But if there's a just God, unless they change, prepare slaughter for the children, for the iniquities of their fathers. My brother from Haiti had to leave, Jean-Baptiste. But you heard on the news today that Aristide stepped down. But the truth of the matter, as we learned, was that special forces of the United States landed in Haiti and took him out of Haiti. And the news media covers. And who was the person that gave us this information? The Consul General of Haiti called Jean-Baptiste, who is Haitian, and told him what went down. Do you know why Haiti is in trouble? 200 years. That's right. This is her anniversary. Yeah. She's the first country in the Western Hemisphere that got freedom, not by marching and not by praying. That's right. They fought and they beat the army of Napoleon. Toussaint Louverture, Christophe Dessalines. France has never forgiven Haiti for beating their hero. Woodrow Wilson attacked Haiti, destroyed their government, and set up a series of dictators. I wish I had time, but my time is up. But nobody that loves black people and wants to see black people free will America support. They promised Mandela that they would support him, and he promised to build 100,000 new homes and give electricity to the people. But when I visited there, his ex-wife Winnie Mandela told me they failed to come through with their promise. They promised Aristide millions of dollars. They promise you. They make promises only to deceive. I don't know Aristide's guilt or innocence, but I believe he was a man of the people. He was a man for the people. And any man like that is a danger to the corporate interests who want to invest in third world countries and take over their resources. You have to understand Satan. I'm going to close by reading you something from Paul Harvey. You know Paul Harvey? God. He's a great radio personality. And he wrote something called If I Were the Devil. Oh, brother, you got to help me find this thing. If I were the devil. I'll get it. Give me 1 second. Oh, man, come on. Brother Arif, come here and find that for me, please. Because it's so important to read it. If I were the devil, he said, I'm going to start it. He said, I would work to take over the most powerful nation on the earth if I were the devil. I would gain control, he says, of the most powerful nation in the world. If I were the devil, I would delude their minds into thinking that they had come from man's efforts instead of God's blessings. I would promote an attitude of loving things and using people instead of the other way around. I would dupe entire states into relying on gambling for their state revenue if I were the devil. If I were the devil, I would convince people that character is not an issue when it comes to leadership. And if I were a devil, I would make it legal to take the life of unborn babies. If I were the devil, I would make it socially acceptable to take one's own life and invent machines to make it convenient. If I were the devil, I would cheapen human life as much as possible so that the life of animals are valued more than the life of human beings. If I were the devil, I would take God out of the schools where even the mention of his name would be a ground for a lawsuit. If I were the devil, I would come up with drugs that sedate the mind and target the young, and I would get sports heroes to advertise them. If I were the devil, I would get control of the media so that every night I could pollute the minds of every family member for my agenda. I would attack family, the backbone of any nation. I would make divorce acceptable and easy, even fashionable. And if the family crumbles, so does the nation. If I were the devil, I would compel people to express their most depraved fantasies on canvas and movie screens, and I would call it art. And if I were the devil, I would convince the world that people are born homosexuals and that their lifestyle should be accepted and marveled. If I were the devil, I would convince the people that right and wrong are determined by a few who call themselves authorities and refer to their agendas as politically correct. And if I were the devil, I would persuade people that the church is irrelevant and out of date. The Bible is for the naive. And if I were the devil, I would dull the minds of Christians and make them believe that prayer is not important and that faithfulness and obedience are optional. If I were the devil, I guess I would leave things pretty much the way they are. Let's give a hand to Paul Harvey. The devil has taken America. Satan has taken America. And I would advise Jews, Christians, and Muslims to rise up against the satanic powers that rule this great nation. What does God promise? Judgment. And afterwards, we're coming out with great substance. What does God promise? He said, I will take the prey from the mighty and deliver the prey from the hands of the mighty. What does God promise? I will spend all my arrows against Babylon. What does God promise? If you don't give us justice, he'll take the kingdom from whom he pleases, and he will give it to whom he pleases. What does America and Europe owe? They owe everything to Africa, the transatlantic slave trade, and all Europe and America must repent or be destroyed from the face of the earth. Thank you for listening, and may Allah bless you as I greet you in peace. Assalamu alaikum. Brothers and sisters, thank you for staying and thank you for listening. How many of you believe that what you heard taught today is true and is good for us as a people? Raise your hand. Well, the last thing I want to say to you is, if you see the enemy come to arrest me or those who speak truth to power, know that the drama of Jesus the Christ is being played out one more time. But I say to the government and I say to those who hate me for telling the truth, do whatever you think you can do. But I warn you in the name of Allah that you will be bringing your country to a swift end the day you put your hands on me. Thank you.
The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Come on, Chicago. All around the world on satellite, let it be heard as it thunders forth from your auditoriums that we in Black America support and back the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Let your applause resound. Come on, Chicago. Let it be heard. Let it be heard a decibel for every year that we were enslaved. Let it be heard a decibel for every dollar and every consideration that we are owed. Keep your applause going, for we're still on satellite all over the world. From San Diego to Boston, from Seattle to Miami, in the Caribbean and Europe, we're all over the world. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan speaks for Saviours Day 2004. Brothers and sisters, we remind you that today's message has been high-speed duplicated on quality audio cassette tape and is available in the lobby as you exit the University of Illinois at Chicago Pavilion. Please make sure you pick up a copy of today's message at your earliest convenience. Be sure to visit us next Sunday and every week at Mosque Mariam, 7351 South Stony Island Avenue, the National Center of the Nation of Islam, or visit a mosque near you in your city to hear the life-giving teaching.
If he gets ready to say prayer, turn it back up. Turn this up, turn it up, turn it up. Brothers and sisters,